Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Panda Boop Creates. Today we are going to look at Cricut Design Space, just some of the basics to get you through your first project. This isn't actually going to make a project, those will be other videos, but it should give you an idea of some of the functions of Design Space so you're not as confused later on. Alright, so first, here is the home page. You'll see some of my projects that I've done. Obviously yours will be here, not mine, on yours. These are just Cricut Access or just Cricut in general. They're not all Access projects, but we won't be looking at that today. That'll be my Cricut Access video. So let's start with a new project here. So up here, it'll show you which machine you have. You want to click the right machine because that will tell you which cut options that you have. If you pick a maker and then you go and pick, say, debossing, but you don't have a maker, it's not going to work in the end and you're going to have wasted all of your time that way. Alright, so on the side here is just new. That's just for a new project, same as I just did. Templates are to show you some of your more common items that you might be using for your project. So say you wanted to put some vinyl on a shirt. You can click on the shirt and that'll give you about an average size, average shape type thing. So you know that your words will be roughly big enough to be able to see on a shirt. Obviously you can't fully go off of these because shirts would be different sizes, shorts would be different sizes. It'll vary depending on what you have, but it's just something to go off of if you have nothing else. Projects are what you saw on the home screen, so all the Cricut Access or just Cricut projects. Same with images. You can search for an image. Say you want a panda bear, you can just type in panda and it'll show up with everything that they have that's panda. Text is to just add words to your project. So it's like any other program really. You can just pick a font, pick if you want it italic or not, pick the size, and then just write. And there it is. And you can resize it here. You can rotate it. You can lock it in place or you can delete it. These sizes will also resize it for you, but more accurately. So these are based on a ratio. That's why there's this little lock guy. But if you unlock him, you can make it whatever width and height that you want. It just won't be as proportional as you see it here. It might change in that regard. Position is if you want it in a specific spot. I usually try to keep it 0, 0 just so I can see everything, especially if I have multiple layers. Keeping it 0, 0 makes it easier to find, I guess, but usually it doesn't matter because you can just see it on screen. Curve is if you want your text to curve. You can see it here. Whee! Alignment, do you want it to be left, center, right? Just like you would in a Word document. Spacing, etc., etc. Shapes are just some of your basic shapes that you can have. We'll get a pretty little heart. And then there are a range or align. Align's not up right now, but if you hit select all, then align will pop up and it'll just align it horizontally, vertically, however you want it. So now it's all lined up. Edit if you want to copy and paste. Deselect, just deselect what you're. Flip, pretty self-explanatory. Rotate again. You can do it by a certain degree as opposed to just willy-nilly. And then upload is to upload your own pictures or SVGs, which I will show you in another video. But basically, if I wanted, I already have this uploaded, I insert my image, and now it's here. Now over on this side, you can see that there's group, ungroup, duplicate, and delete. Obviously, delete and duplicate are pretty self-explanatory. For group, it's just to keep them together. I rarely use it. If I want to keep things together, I will use the attach function, because attach will actually keep it in the same positioning on your mat, whereas group will not. Group is basically just for in Design Space here, not on your mat. So I don't find it particularly helpful, but there are plenty of people that do use it. I'm just not an advocate for it. Ungroup is just to ungroup what you did. And then down here we'll have slice, weld, attach, flatten, and contour. I've never used contour, so don't ask me what that does. I don't actually know. But flatten is if you have a print image. So if you want to like print it onto printable vinyl, for instance, and you have multiple layers, so say like these were all overlapped in different colors, and you just like wanted to print this on printable vinyl, you would want to flatten it to make it one layer, because otherwise it'll print on separate layers. The only thing with flatten is you need to make it whatever color you want it here before you flatten it, because you won't be able to change the color later. Attach, like I said before, if you attach it, then it'll keep that positioning on your mat when you go to cut it, so it'll just group it all together. You can also unattach it. So if I click attach, there's a detach option, so it won't stay that way if you don't want it to. Weld is to weld them all together. So say I don't want this heart cut line going through my words here. I could weld it all together, so all you see in this space is just my heart. I don't see any of this stuff that's over top of it. The only thing with weld is you can't undo it. Once you save your project, there's no undoing weld. So be sure that you want it that way. And if you don't, and if you want the option of changing it in the future, then I would suggest like saving a copy of it so that you can still have one to edit in the future. Because once you save this, that's it. You can't unweld it. Slice is if you want to take certain shapes out of. So say I wanted these little lines out of my heart. I could select these two, slice it, and now I have all these layers. So you can see that the little lines came out of my heart, and I have all of the extra layers. So these are the lines that were in the heart, these are the lines that were a part of this, and this is just the extra that went around the heart. So I could put it back here. Where was it? Right about there. There you go. And there you would have it all cut out. Sometimes you can keep these for, depending on what you're doing, sometimes you keep them, but 9 times out of 10 I end up deleting these. And then you have your line type options up here. So it's not just cut, although cut will probably be what you use the most, especially if you're using like vinyl or cardstock. But there's also the draw feature. So that is, I would take this and I would draw the outline of it using infusible ink pens or Cricut pens onto paper or whatever I'm drawing on. It will not color this in for you though. It will just draw the outline. So keep that in mind. I've tried the whole fill thing and it did not color it in. I was really hoping. Score is using your scoring wheel or your scoring stylus. It will take these shapes and it will just score a line of it into your material. You can also just do straight up lines, like in the shapes. It'll have a score line right there. Engrave is to engrave the image into like acrylic or a dog tag or something. It'll do the whole shape. Again, it won't, at least I don't think it'll do the inside. I've only ever done the one engraving, and it involved a lot of tiny little dots, so I wouldn't really know if it filled it in or not because it looks filled in. Debossing is kind of similar to engraving, except it doesn't create like a sharp like cut in it. It's more just like an indent in it. It's mostly meant for like foil type material. I don't deboss a lot, not gonna lie, but it's for your debossing tip. The wave is to create a wavy cut. So it's the same as cut, but it won't cut a straight line. This will be a wavy heart. Like it'll go like, oh, my mouse sucks. Like this kind of thing. Wave. Perf is your perforation blade. So it'll just cut tiny little holes, like your notebook paper, how it has those tiny little holes for you to rip. That's basically what this would do. It would make a heart-shaped rip. Foil, they have a new foiling tool I have not used, but basically it will put this picture on foil so that like it'll create an indent on it almost, so that you can have like a foil heart, and then you can use transfer tape to then tape that foil heart to your notebook or whatever you want. It's actually kind of cool looking. I will probably get it in the near future because gold foil is pretty, but yeah, so that's what that does. Fill here, the no fill is just for you to cut. And then print is if you want your printable vinyl. So if I say print, then this is going to print the whole thing. It's not going to cut it. It will cut it after the fact. So, how do I explain this? So basically, it'll send it to your printer to print this black or whatever color you make it. It'll print it to be that color. And then it'll send it to your Cricut to cut the heart. Sometimes if you upload a photo, just like a regular JPEG, and it's a square, it can get tricky to try and get it to cut exactly where you want it. So that's where like this would come in handy, where you just like put a shape around it and cut it to be that size and then send it to the printer to print. Yeah. But in general, if you have a picture that you want to upload, it will already ask you if you want to cut it or you want to print and cut it. So it's kind of redundant, but it's there in case you upload a shape or something that you want to print. So when you have something that you want to make, you'll go to make it up here. It will then sort it onto your mats based on what you've asked for. So see how it has that black square around it? That's what it's going to cut. And that's what I mean by like sometimes it's really difficult to get it to be the shape that you actually want it to be. I have yet to master that skill. Apparently it is masterable. I have yet to do it though. It always cuts the square and I'm just stuck with the square. This is for print and cut. So for actual cutting, it'll just show you here. You can move things around your mat however you want it. So however you have your material laid out, maybe you have different colors or something all on one mat. But this will separate it based on colors. So if this is black and this is gray, it puts the gray on a new mat for you so that you can only put one color per mat. You don't have to put one color per mat. It'll all fit on one mat. and you know exactly which line it's on, you can move it so that it'll go on the color you want. But it can be tricky, especially at first when you're not used to having to line everything up properly and seeing how it cuts and stuff. I've definitely cut my mats and drawn off of the paper enough times because I think it'll fit and it doesn't fit. So while you're starting out, I would suggest one mat per color, and then as you get more comfortable with it, you can maybe start putting different colors on the same mat if they fit. Material size, you can put your actual material size if it's in the list, but I usually just keep it to my mat size, so 12 by 12 or 12 by 24. If I want a 12 by 24, it'll show a 12 by 24 mat. And then I know how much room I have, and it knows it's 12 by 24 mat. I've had it where I wrote, like I have it here that it's 12 by 12, but then I put in a 12 by 24 mat because my material was 12 by 12, but my mat was 12 by 24, and the machine stopped at 12 by 12 and did not give me back the rest of my mat. So be wary of that. I would always put the mat size because material size doesn't really matter to the Cricut. That's more of a user error than anything. The mat size matters to them. The mirror is mostly for heat transfer vinyl. When you're using heat transfer vinyl for like t-shirts, for instance, you'll cut it, but then you'll have to flip it to put it onto your shirt. So you always want to mirror it so that it goes the right way. But, well, this is a bad example because it was already mirrored, but in Design Space, so it looks normal now, but it would look backwards usually when it's mirrored, not the right way. But yeah, it's mostly for heat transfer vinyl. Sometimes it's for regular vinyl, depending on what you're putting it on. If you're putting on like the back of glass, you'd want to mirror it, but if you're putting on the front of glass, it could be just normal. You have to sit there and really like think about, okay, what side am I putting it on? Where's the sticky side of the vinyl? Do I have to mirror it? And sometimes, no matter how hard you think about it and how much you think you're right, you'll still get it wrong. It is definitely a trial and error thing until you figure it out enough, like until you do it enough times and it becomes muscle memory. And even then, sometimes you'll forget to hit this stupid little button and be like, damn it. But yeah, don't worry too much about it, but it's definitely good to get it right the first time because then you don't waste material. But especially when you're new, just expect that you will probably be wasting material. And then once you're ready, you can hit the continue button here. It'll load your machine. So I found that I have a maker. And then it will show you the materials you can use. These are just the popular ones. If you don't see what you have here, you can hit the browse all materials and there's a big list. Now, depending on what material you have, it may or may not be listed here. It's a big list, but it doesn't have literally everything that you would want. And it's mostly Cricut brands, as you can see by the little C. Just try to find something that is as close to what you have as possible. It's mostly about thickness than anything else. So as long as it's around about the same thickness as what you have, then click that. It's not the biggest of deals. Like, don't hit glitter vinyl if you have regular vinyl. Those are different thicknesses. So that's why there's a different option for that. So just be wary of thicknesses more than anything. And then once you click what you want, hit done. And it will tell me that I need the knife blade. And because I haven't calibrated my knife blade, it's asking me to calibrate it, but we'll ignore that. It also tells you that you need a strong grip mat. using tape on all 4 sides. It will tell you your pressure. I always use light pressure, especially if it's a new blade. If it's an older blade and it's starting to not cut as well, then I will use default. I almost never use more unless I'm doing like a super thick material like wood or chipboard or something. But even then, I try to use default first because many people have cut through their mats using more, and I don't want to be one of those people. I've only made like small cuts into my mats, but I've never cut through them, and that's my biggest fear, is cutting through them. Yeah, stick with light originally, or less, I think is what it's called. The one before default. And then it'll tell you what blade that you need in which clamp. Blades are always in clamp B, and pens are always in clamp A, but it'll tell you anyways, just so you don't get confused. And then it'll tell you to press your load mat button once you've got all your materials taped down. Well, in this case, taped down. And then you can press your load button to let it load. And then once you press your load button, your Cricut button will flash, and you press that to cut. It even tells you here. It walks you through it. I'm obviously not going to cut it because I don't actually want to cut this, but you can see what it looks like. And that's it, basically. Those are the basics of Design Space. To make your own project is definitely a difficult task at first. Trying to figure it all out. It's not the most user-friendly software. There's definitely been a lot of complaints on that. I don't find it too bad. I figured out my first project fairly easily, but my first project was only like text on a t-shirt, so it wasn't too bad. But hopefully this was helpful to you guys who are trying to figure out what all of the options are and why you would need what and how to find stuff. I will have more videos on how to upload your own images and SVG files, and also about Cricut Access and whether or not it's worth the subscription. So be sure to check out those videos. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and thank you guys for watching.